everybody's ready. So I'll call the meeting to order, and before we do the lands acknowledgement, I'll ask Emma to do a roll call of everybody, make sure we've got that for the record.
Okay, please unmute and say you're present when I call your name. Director Popo.
Present.
Director Davidoff.
Present, thank you.
Director Hannigraf. Present. Director Weatherhead. Present. Director McFadden. Director McFadden. Okay. I'll move on. Director Zelznick.
Present.
Director Casley.
Present.
Director Main.
I'm present, thank you.
Director Buller.
Present, thank you.
Okay, and do we have Director Jackman?
Yes, hello.
Okay, and Director Newell?
Not available today by an email I sent earlier.
Okay.
And Director McFadden has joined us. I see she's there.
Yes, thank you. I was just about to jump in.
Okay, so nobody that's absent on there, everybody's here?
Just Director Newell.
Just Director Yuan, we're aware of, he did tell me he was not able to join us. Well, what I'd like to do is acknowledge and respect the Indigenous people within whose traditional lands we are meeting today. And we have a recommendation for freedom of the floor for East Resource Recovery Committee Chair, Director Jackman. Can I get a motion to that effect? Director Handcraft and a seconder, Director Weatherhead. Anybody opposed? We only have two other directors here in the room, and we have Director Jackman there. So the motion is carried, and all the rest is online. So I will be asking, rather than an affirmative vote at the board table, I'll be asking for anybody that objects to it or a negative vote online. And I'm going to be monitoring chat here. So the best two ways we can do it. You can either raise your hand and I've got you on screen, or you can put your name in chat to be recognized before speaking. So the freedom of the floor has been moved, seconded, and carried. And adoption of the agenda, recommendation for the adoption of the agenda, Director Hannigraf, Director Weatherhead. And anybody opposed or any additions that they want to make to the agenda? Seeing none, hearing none. So a motion, anybody opposed to approving the agenda? Seeing no opposition, the agenda has been approved. The receipt of the minutes, I trust everybody had a chance to read them, and I don't know how good your memory is, but they were quite a while ago. So anybody have any changes that they found in the minutes or something, inaccuracies? I don't see anybody. So the minutes have been received. So the next item on the agenda is item number 3. Burton and Edgewood Operations and Maintenance Contract Extension. And I'll turn it over to Larry. Amy will speak to that.
Thank you. So this was a 3-year contract with 2 1-year extensions. So due to the value being over $75,000 for a single year, we're back for board approval to extend for the first 1-year extension. The contract was originally awarded to the previous owners for the Central Kootenai Garbage Club. The new owner, Chris Jackins, has been performing really well. We're very happy with his services, and we're quite happy to move forward with another extension, or with the first extension, sorry. So the annual adjustments have been applied for each year during the contract, and that's based on, this one has a particular clause that's the previous, based on the change in the previous calendar year, and it's a calculation based on labor and fuel. And so the original contract price for it at 1 year was $112,000, increased annually. It actually went down as of last year, mostly due to the fuel index. So the $138,659,000 is the value starting September 30th, and would be the rate for the upcoming year. Pretty straightforward. Happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Amy. Does anybody have any questions? I see no hands raised and I see nothing in chat. So can I get a motion to approve for the recommendation? Director Weatherhead? Director Hadegraaff? So the motion has been seconded. Discussion? Seeing no, Director Weatherhead, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that we love Chris and he's doing a fabulous job. Everybody loves him. He's taken it to a whole new level of organization for those two transfer stations. And he also puts in, the extra community service, let's say, in some of the things that he does. Not charging anybody for it, I'm sure. He's just an all-around good guy.
Yeah, well, thank you, Director Weatherhead, for the good words. Anybody else? Okay, so we've got a mover, seconder. Anybody opposed to the recommendation? Seeing no opposition, carried. Now we've got item number 4, correspondence, and Amy, maybe you want to expand on that correspondence a little bit, or give us a little bit of an info on it?
Sure. So the Village of Slocan had sent in a request to allow them to place our waste transfer bin within their public works yard during the portion of the time that the transfer station has closed. I went by their public works yard a few weeks ago and met with their public works and CAO. It is fenced. We did have a discussion about, awareness of bears and paying attention to if there's any concerns and changes if that became an issue. But they do appear to have space. They have a process to move the material from their truck to the bin, and they suggested that during that would be their preferred way to manage the closure for them, that they have some challenges with staffing and equipment right now. It sounded like that that would be a large burden for them to take the material down to Udashenia, and that this method would be far more cost effective and time effective for them. We also talked about the amount of times they would have the bin moved, and it sounded like it would take them a few weeks to get to build a bin. So it actually would, we have the bin hauling in our budget. There was no reduction of that bin budget to accommodate these closures because it was uncertain how long they would take. And so there won't be a cost impact to the service to have that, there would be a cost of a couple of hauls, but that value would be in the budget already. So I think the question would be that just getting, if there was any concerns about advancing on that.
So thank you, Amy. Anybody have any questions for staff on what she mentioned here? Seeing no questions, we'll move on to correspondence. We did that, so it's been received.
It looks like.
Oh, okay. So who's got their hand up? Oh, Director Casely, go ahead.
So did Slocan take into account in their costing to haul their garbage to a weigh scale site versus what they're paying at their own site, the transfer station? The difference for us is $122 a trip. when we go to the cusp and go across the scales versus taking it either to Slocan or at our own transfer station. That is quite a significant difference in cost for a municipality.
I will ask staff to respond to that.
Through the chair, are you, is this in regards to the tipping fee or the time travel?
Tipping fee, just strictly the tipping fee difference between going across the scales versus doing the volume as we do at Slocan and Roseberry. It's a savings of $122 when we go across the scales versus going to the transfer station that has no scales.
Sorry, through the chair, it's 122 less to go to the scaled sites than the volume?
Sure is.
Okay.
It isn't new that we've always known that we paid more, but it's getting quite a significant difference with going across the scales versus what we're paying for volume.
So do you have a suggestion, Director Casely, what staff can look at?
Well, maybe Slocan might want to reconsider if there's more costs. Is this what's the difference of $122? You figure it out. For even wages in there, you're still probably breaking even at your cost other than your fuel and your time. You know, that's what we're doing.
Through the chair, because there's no transfer station attendant accepting the load and accepting the money, it will get charged as a scaled material at Udashenia.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah, but then we're also paying the transport from the hauling of the bin. It's in the contract, yeah, but we're still paying a fee to haul that bin. We're not doing it for
We
nothing.
would take a volume measurement at Slocan. We'll look into that further.
Yeah, so we'll take that as a suggestion. Director Casely and staff will look into it further and see what cost savings can be realized. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on the correspondence received from Slocan? I see Director Bowler, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Popoff. Yeah, we had a council meeting on Monday evening, and it was also raised that there seems to be a bit of concern around the fact that the Area H residents local to Slocan that use the Slocan transfer station, the distances traveled also seem to be difficult for a lot of people, and we're worried about trash being dumped in the sort of natural landscape around Area H instead of being transported all the way to Udashenia or Roseberry during this time of closure. So we were curious also if there's any sort of been any discussion about temporary bins for the public as well, rather than just for the municipality.
Through the chair, no. We're not doing that at Roseberry, and like we don't have any plans to do that at Slocan. The logistics of hosting a bin in a different location were just too much to manage.
Okay.
You have a supplemental, or are we good?
No, we didn't see any of that happening when we've had to transfer our public as even in Area H, and for all that matter, even for the public of New Denver residents, other than they get picked up. But if you're doing any others, you had to haul it to Slocan or to Nakusp. So, and we didn't see an excess of dumping elsewhere. We see an excess of dumping in the village garbage cans from the Area H, but not on, at least it's not on, I guess, the side of the road or anything.
Well, thank you for your comment, Director Casely and Director Bowler. You've heard the comments from staff and comments from Director Case. I do realize that it is a concern of having garbage dumped up our back roads in Area H, but there's not really too much we can do to stop them from doing that. So moving right along, any further discussion? See no further discussion. We've got some discussion items that were sent in by directors, and I believe the first couple were sent in by Director Davidoff. So do you want to start with the first one, Director Davidoff, and give us a little preamble on that?
Yeah, Chair, if it's okay, the two items are connected, and I could cover both of them if that's okay. I could introduce them at least, and then we'll see where the discussion goes.
Okay, go ahead, Director Davidoff.
Okay, so the West Resource, we did a tour of all of our facilities, and that was many years ago. And it was really, really an eye-opener for us to see each facility, what was happening. I believe we started with Otoshenya first. That was the first one because that's where we're spending the most money. And we learned a lot about what's going on there, the things we're pouring millions of dollars into. So basically, also, I know I've been going to the Otoshenya resource recovery site, and I'm trying to understand and figure out, and I have connected with Stuart on this, trying to figure out like how the thing is run. We have a contractor on site, GFL, and then we have RDCK staff on site. And I started hearing about a lot of crossover issues. And who's in charge of what? Like, for example, who's in charge of health and safety at the site? Who reports to which person? In an emergency, what happens? Who do we contact? Who is the manager of the site? Because GFL also operates in Trail, in RDKB and Trail, they have their own manager, and GFL operates under that manager. That manager's in charge of what GFL does. So I've been kind of looking at this. I says, who are the immediate supervisors? Who are the lead hands? Who does what when it comes to safety and operations? And I could never get a really straight answer. And what is really, to this day, like I'm still a little confused. I think it would be really important for us to visit, particularly Otoshenya, find out who's doing what. But from staff, it would be really neat if we could get kind of an organizational chart of how the staff are managed, who they talk to, because we don't need them talking to us when we come there with their concerns. They should be dealing directly with, if it's a GFL issue. But the problem is that when you have two kind of entities at one site, you're going to get gaps in service. And I think a site visit would help us understand what I'm talking about. Because I've seen things over the years and I'm going, like, who's in charge of this? Like, why isn't that fixed? Why isn't this sign up? Well, that's not our responsibility. That's GFL. And if GFL doesn't do it, why is the water truck that's supposed to be there for fire just pouring water out? Like, it won't even hold a load of water for a day during wildfire season. Why is there oil here? Is that a contaminated waste site now? I've asked those questions. And who's in charge of that? Whose building is whose? Whose equipment is whose? Why is certain equipment not operational? And the key thing is that what I've been told is it's straightforward. GFL operates all the equipment at the site. They own all the equipment, and basically our staff don't touch it. But the bins and stuff, some bins are ours, some are GFL's. And then I had like people complaining to me about, you come there to drop off your compost in a monster bin, you got to walk up to this thing. I mean, you guys have to see this, because I don't want to just be saying stuff. I think the West Resource Recovery Committee needs to tour and look at our sites and look at the needs and understand what we have. Like we did that as a hospital board. Like we toured every facility over a course of several years. Even if this takes us, a year to do, where we tour, maybe start in Otashenya and then go to, we can hit a couple and we could have a West Resource Recovery meeting at the complex maybe when we do tour the Otashenya site, because we can book a room at the complex for a West Resource meeting. But all I'm saying is that, and the problem is staff can't be open with us with concerns. And when I ask, I says, well, you should really be talking to so-and-so, and says, I don't even know who that is. And I'm going, well, isn't that who you report to? No. So is there an org chart? Is there a communications chart? Is there like an operations chart? Is there something that we could see as the people in charge of this site that provide all the funding that could be shared with us, like when we come for a visit, and then could we meet these people? And do they look after one site, 3 sites, 5 sites? I have no idea. And some of these people are never there that I says, could you point out who you're talking about? Well, they're not here right now.
Okay, Director Paul, David, I'll ask staff to respond to that. I think the idea of a site visit to Otashenya is a good idea, and possibly the Nakaspa landfill, which is going to be closed after all the construction is done, would be a good idea. And what we could do, and I'll ask staff to take a look at it, is, as you mentioned, have a West Resource Recovery meeting in Complex in Castlegar, and then do a tour of the Otashenya landfill. And on the other hand is have a West Resource Recovery meeting in the Cusp, and on our way up there, stop in Spokane and Roseberry, and then tour the Cusp. And I don't know if Burton and Edgewood would be a worthwhile visit. It'd be nice to know where their locations are, but I'll leave it up to staff. So staff, can you respond to his concerns?
Can I respond?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, I fully agree that a visit, particularly of the Otashenya landfill site, would be valuable and would help understanding the pressures, the operations a little bit, and the size of the operation. 100% subscribe to that. Visiting all facilities, we have in total, including recycling sites, about 8 facilities. So you're talking probably about at least 2 full days to tour all of these sites. I don't think that is a reasonable approach. Like us landfill, maybe one of the major transfer stations, Spokane or whatever, that could be managed, but I don't think all facilities is doable. In regards to org chart, we have org charts. I believe they are even on our website that show our department's major structure. It's available to the level that is of interest or should be of interest to the directors. Many things, I have to say, quite frankly, Director Davidoff, are things that are not the responsibility of the directors. You should not be the contact for any of the staff on these sites. They have clear structures, they have clear instructions who their supervisor is, and that's whom they need to talk to. If they truly
Okay, so a supplemental, Chair, if I may.
Yeah, supplemental, go ahead, Director David.
Yeah. So basically what I'm hearing is that even if there is my understanding is that at all our recovery sites, Central, East, and West, there is a resource recovery operations communication org chart. And what I'm hearing is that that's not up to director shouldn't see that. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, if I may, through the chair. The opposite is true. I said we clearly have an org chart, and I believe it is even on our website. If it is not available to you as directors, I happily provide that. But we have org charts clearly. But they are structured, and at some point you come to the level where it is landfill attendants or landfill scale operators, right? They are not individually named, but it is clearly outlined who reports to, and typically for operations like that, that would be the site supervisors who report to Amy Kutnikov as the operations supervisor. So that structure is clearly laid out both internally, but I believe we have that as well on our website as org structures. If it is not, like I said, I'm happy to provide these org structures. They are already canned on in our filing systems.
Thank you, Manager Wolf. So, Director David, before we go to another supplemental here, we'll address the issue of the org chart. So, staff, can you please send out the org chart to every West Resource Recovery Director so we have that for information and that we know if there is a complaint, who we can direct the complaint to rather than respond to the complaint ourselves. So that will be a start on that one. So the other one about site visits, do you want to make a motion to the effect that staff look in to arrange site visits to Otashania, Slocan, Roseberry, and Nakusp? Stuff on that recycling bay, sites or whatever, as Manager Wolf mentioned, could take a lot longer. But something that we can cover in one day and have a resource recovery meeting in Nakusp and one in Castlegar.
I'll move that, Chair.
I'll second it. Otashania is way too far for me, I just want to say.
So we have a mover, we have a seconder, and Emma, did you get the gist of it?
To arrange a visit?
2 visits.
2 visits.
Yeah, to arrange 2 visits, one to Otashenya with a resource recovery meeting at the complex. Just to, after we do the visit, so we can discuss it and have a little bit of a conversation on it. And any agenda items that is prevalent to West Resource Recovery. And then the transfer stations in Slocan, Roseberry, and the landfill, or the transfer, soon to be transfer station in the cusp, and the West Resource Recovery meeting in the cusp, so we can discuss what we have seen and any other agenda items that come to light.
So Chair, can I speak to the motion?
We have the motion, we have a seconder. I just want to make sure that Emma has got the motion in there, and I'll ask her to read it back, and then you can speak to it, Director David, or anybody else that wants to speak to it. Okay, do you want to read it back?
The staff will organize 2 visits for West Resource Recovery Committee. One to Shenya for the meeting at Castlegar Complex, and then another 2 visits to Slocan, Roseberry, and the cusp sites with a committee meeting at held in the cusp.
Okay, so that sounds good. Discussion now. Go ahead, Director David.
Yeah, I would also like to see when we go there, I would like to see the people who are in charge of the site and be there for us to speak with. So if there's a manager there or a field supervisor or lead hands or whatever there is there, I would like them to be there so that I think it would be a good idea for us to know who these people are. We've never met them. And they're the front line. They're the ones that have to deal with all the issues. It's not people in Nelson in the board office that deal with this. It's the field supervisors and the lead hands and the safety advisors. That's who deals with all this stuff. So if you can ensure that staff is there, if we have any questions that they may address.
Thank you, Director David. But if I recall, when we did the site visit in Otashenya, we had a manager there give us a tour of the site, and he was the one that was responsible. But I'll leave it up to staff here to respond to your concern.
We can do that. It's just additional resources that need to be dedicated to that meeting, but yes, we can do that. I do have an additional meeting question for the chair, if I may.
Yes.
Are we to organize for transportation buses in regards to get from meeting to the location? Is that the intent?
If I may respond to that, I'm going by recollection. When we visited Grand Forks, we supplied our own transportation and we put in for mileage. And I've got Director Weatherhead that once you go ahead, Director Weatherhead.
Thank you to the chair. My concern is in any added costs associated with this. And staff's valuable time associated with this. I feel that we are very well informed in what I feel that in our governance we need to be informed on when it comes to these facilities. Maybe I'm not all that curious about it, but I can go to my dump anytime I want to, and I do, and I've got the lay of the land there, and I've gone down to the Roseberry one and got the lay of the land there and hiked all around it, and just so I understand, I've gone out to my own facilities just so I understand it, but I've done that on my own. Yeah, I drive a lot. I don't get, reimbursed for all that extra driving I do, and
Thank you, the Director Weatherhead. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, I'll ask for a vote. Anybody opposed? Director Weatherhead, you're opposed. Anybody else? Motion's carried. So the next item on the agenda is, and you covered both of them, Director David, as it started out. So I'll go to the next item on the agenda is the commercial industrial waste acceptance at McCusp after landfill closure. Go ahead. I'm at a loss here. Who wants to start on this one? Director Zelznik, or would it be staff that would start on this one? Yeah, go ahead.
Chair.
Yeah, the staff will provide a report. Verbal.
Yes, so through the chair and Director Zelznik, please chime in with anything I've missed. So Director Zelznik identified his concern about when the landfill transfers to a transfer station, which to be clear is still under works. We're in the process of doing the closure plan right now, and we expect to be landfilling to get to our final elevations and get ready for closure probably for another year. So we will start using the new transfer station, but all the compactor bins will be installed at the same time for cost effectiveness for all three facilities that are under work. So the compactor bins won't be installed until Slocan's completed. So the compactor should be installed by the end of the year. We might not use them at McCusp quite until we're ready to move into transferring though. But we will use the new bin wall for the roll-offs that we will move up to the landfill. So that, we've got quite a bit of time to plan this out. And as a reminder, the closure of this landfill has been in the plan since before 2011. It was in the previous, the 2012 resource recovery plan, and also the current one. And so this is, under works and in the community and then approved by the province for quite some time. And so we're just in the process of determining how the effects of operations once it moves to a transfer station. And so the transfer station will still continue as a transfer station, it will continue to accept all the diversion materials that on site that it currently does, the wood, the metal, the yard and garden, the appliances, tires, tanks, batteries, all that kind of stuff will continue. It's just the mixed waste that would be transferred on site. And so Director Zelznik's concern was the local businesses that bring the larger loads and how, and if we will continue to accept that commercial waste, which we will. The current bylaw that applies to all the sites is that large loads and bulky items are at landfills only. So, and there's a few other materials, and asbestos is another one that we are investigating how we'll manage there. And so it's the large loads definition is where we're really kind of paying the most attention to at the moment, and that's anything over 5.1 cubic meters or 2 tons or 2,000 kilograms. And so we have had a look through our data for the last few years. And there's a pretty limited amount of materials that come in that size of a load. So we've done some data analysis out of our previous and current software for the scales, and it's a pretty limited group. It's a pretty limited amount of load. So we're just investigating what we can do to minimize those impacts. And so that could include some of the things we're considering at this early stages. Is increasing some of the on-site diversion, so possibly piloting things like diverting rubble, the concrete and such, and asphalt shingles, which are heavier materials, especially from construction and demo projects, and can be stockpiled. They're non-putrescible, and they actually are. It's something we've been considering at some sites, especially ones that have the capacity for storage of these materials, and then they can be reused, usually for on-site projects such as road base and drainage and things like that. And it is something that is done in other areas of the district. So we're investigating space and management of those materials, and then looking at the data. There, like I said, there's pretty limited contractors that have those materials that are over that volume. So we're in the process of reaching out to them to investigate what these loads are, if there's the ability, like say if there's these certain materials that could come out that would change that. And some of the outcomes might be a recommendation that we change the acceptance requirements at the McCusp landfill or transfer station once it becomes that, to increase it, depending on what the material is, if it's suitable for compactors and the roll-up bins. Something that we're not looking to likely do is if someone hires a 40 or 50-yard bin from Waste Management or GFL and fills it, like to have it placed in our bins, and then both bins make their way down the valley, because that's where those bins are hired from. They're either coming out of Trail or Castlegar. So there are going to be some loads that will be directed to landfills, but we're looking at the ways that we can minimize the impact to the community as much as possible. So the general statement is that most materials that come to us will still manage to come to us. There are a couple items that we're looking at and trying to figure out if we can either change how we accept it, or if we change the acceptance requirements at that site. So Director Zelznick came and met me on site to have this discussion in person, and that's what the photos are attached in the email that Emma distributed this week. The facility is largely constructed. We're just working on railings and some capping and surfacing still. So it'll still be a number of weeks before, maybe even a number of months before we get that facility up and operational, but it will still remain as our landfill until we're ready for final closure, and communications will definitely come in advance of that.
Can I augment the information a little bit? The unloading has one other restriction, and that is equipment compatibility. So you couldn't unload a roll-off bin into a roll-off bin. But even some compacting equipment sometimes has limitations. It depends on the angle the equipment tips. It can be the height of the edge when this equipment is angled, and how it is emptied, how if it slides out, if it has push-out plates and things like that. So equipment compatibility may be one limitation to unloading at the transfer station. Second part I wanted to point out, and I have before, is please keep in mind that what we are intending to do in the CASP is currently in place in other regions. i.e., if you have a contractor working in Randall, they bring their material to the Crescent landfill. If you have somebody in Caslow working, or a contractor in Caslow, they have to bring their material over to a contractor to Otashinia already. So in other regions, we have that similar hauling distances, and municipalities or communities already in that situation. So it's not entirely new, and we are not fully inventing the wheel. I think it is a very good idea to look at options where we can do management on site. I think Amy mentioned it. Roofing shingles comes to mind, or concrete, or things like that, where we potentially can do local stockpiling and do individual management through one-time events on these sites. But by and large, most of the materials would be hauled to Otashinia.
Thank you, Manager Wolf. Thank you, Amy. Anybody have any questions? Director Weatherhead, go ahead.
I appreciate all of that information. Sorry, through the chair to Amy. So that when you talk about meter squared, like that kind of measurement, can you just give me an idea of kind of what size trailer we're talking, like dump trailer that would, and I will take into account the fact that obviously there's going to be some height to the edge of the bin that they would have to be able to, and some of those are kind of low, those dump trailers, a lot of them. And so, yeah, so size-wise, just to get an idea of what that volume looks like.
So through the chair, one thing we did do in advance of these projects as well was contacted all the municipalities with their curbside collection trucks and the waste hauling companies, and inquired about the requirements for the tipping wall and the railings to be able to still utilize that. So we, and also investigated if they had any plans for future vehicles that we needed to incorporate. So we tried to consider that the railings can be moved so that the bins sit below the bin wall, so that the materials can be unloaded by tipping trailers, tipping trucks, curbside collection trucks. So the 2 tons, we have an equivalent of 5.1 cubic meters. That's definitely beyond like a regular pickup truck. Like, that's a fairly large load. I'm trying to picture, like, as an example, Chris's truck from Burton Edgewood is usually under that 2,000 kilograms. I think over the course of the year, he's got like 2 or 3 loads that are over, and they're not usually more than, like, they're still under 3,000 kilograms. So there might be some like festival days or something where maybe he didn't get unloaded, and there's a reason why there was maybe out of the course of a year, a small handful of loads that are over that amount. We do accept municipal curbside materials at a lot of our transfer stations, and those ones are I assume that there's a handful of those that are also over that amount, but because they're servicing the municipalities, we accept those materials. So, okay. Sorry, I can't give you an example. I don't have anything visual to demonstrate exactly what that means, and it really depends on the type of material. Like, it could be quite small if it's a heavy, dense material.
What we can, as an example, so most pickup boxes, meanwhile, are just 4-foot boxes, so that would be 1.3 meters. Width is probably similarly, so you have 1.3 by 1.3, and then they would be probably 1.2 meters, so 4 feet high, that box. That's just about 2 cubic meters.
I'm just picturing what our construction people have for, when we're doing a demolition or a renovation, things like that.
Yeah, I think if it's not light materials, if it's actual construction materials, if I may through the chair, the weight restriction for a pickup probably would be reached earlier than the volume restriction that you have there.
So supplemental.
Go ahead.
If they could do smaller loads at a time as well to make sure that they don't have to take it all the way to the Deshenia. Is that something that they could just consider?
That is, Amy has actually started some communication with Waste Management and their current rules and sizes of loads. And that is one of the items they are actually starting to discuss if changes to the route. They currently haul their material actually from Slocan all the way to Nakaspa. If they can modify their routes to change that, right, and make both the volume smaller or reverse the direction of the hauling from Slocan down towards Otashania. So there's certainly some adaptation and some changes required to make it run smoothly, and I'm sure there will be some hiccups in the first year or so to work through these difficulties, and there's a chance that we come to you and ask for certain exemptions or changes to the bylaw to accommodate the one or the other thing. So yeah, we'll have to work through that, hopefully in cooperation with everyone involved.
Thank you, Jess, because I think I would just like to make sure that all of our guys in the industries are aware well ahead of time so that it doesn't come as a shock that they've gone over and they've got to haul it out of town, and also for CJ Industries to consider this as maybe it could be another business opportunity for Chris to be hauling for people to Deshenia.
Okay, thank you, Director Weatherhead, and thank you, Manager Wolf, for the explanation. I've got 2 other speakers in there, and we'll go to Director Zelznick. Go ahead, and then Director Kasel.
Okay, thank you, through the chair. First of all, I want to thank Amy and Director, and Mr. Wolf for your presentations. And I believe everybody got the attachment that was sent out earlier today on this, the document that I printed out.
Was sent out yesterday, right?
Yeah, it was sent yesterday lunchtime.
So they're nodding their heads, everything was sent out.
Okay, all right, so it's pretty well self-explanatory. So my biggest concern was a commercial industrial coming into our transfer station, and I heard a lot. So I do speak to a lot of contractors. I'm in the contractor forestry business, and also their biggest concern is, construction waste. They take down a home, things like this. How is it going to work? So actually, I really want to thank Amy for meeting with me on August 16th. And it was a very good discussion. and it looks like it's going to be a learning curve right off the bat, how we're going to do it. I believe recycling is going to be the real secret when you demolish a home. Make sure you try to, with an excavator, do your best to recycle the wood, recycle all the different items that that can go into the recycling area first before throwing it into a bin. So that's going to be a learning curve. So we're very fortunate we still get to retain the upper area for the recycling of the wood waste, batteries, etc., metal, propane, and also we'll be still accepting the raw sewage. The big issue was, from the roofing company, especially for asphalt shingles. Amy and I talked about it, and they do it at other districts where they actually we'll may be able to leave the asphalt shingles on site and bring in a grinder. So that would be a big cost savings and just the weight. And so the large bulky waste, 5.1, 180 square feet, up to, so a lot of people have dump trailers. I've got a 16-foot trailer when I haul waste. Are we going to still, when I talked to Amy about it, biggest thing when you lift that trailer up, you got to make sure it slides out, because if you go ahead, and a lot of times you have to go ahead and jerk the brakes to make it all come out. So that's going to be a learning curve too, how to, because you're going to be hand bombing it if it doesn't all come out properly. So that's going to be one of them. So it's going to be a learning curve. We're going to have to learn how to work together on the size allowable. And like you said, it's going to take about a year to work with the industrial commercial people. And we also discussed asbestos, maybe having its own separate landfill or bin, and also showing where the new compost area was going. It's some. So I believe you sent, you can actually see the pictures I sent you, and a lot has changed since those pictures. They put up fencing, they put up gates, they've done a lot of work out there. And the recycling area, I really want to thank Amy and the staff for listening to Director Weatherhead and myself for the cardboard plastics. You've expanded it, and the nice thing is you got a way in and then a way out. So there's no congestion. It's before the scales. You don't have to go on, and you've made it a lot bigger. And especially for the future, because it's just community's going to keep growing. There's going to be more and more waste. Also, it was also nice to see the two-way system that you're going to be building. You can actually go to the say if you got wood waste or lumber or branches or whatever else you got, you can actually go out that way and come in instead of going all the way back out and coming in one way. You got a two-way system. So again, you also listen to us on that. So I really want to thank Amy and Director Wolf and the staff for. I forgot the people that came out that did the evaluation with us. We want to thank them. So mainly, it's going to be a learning curve for this commercial industrial, and I think hopefully we can all work it out together. And like Director Weatherhead, we've got to get that out ahead of time before they start showing up when we're ready to open. So it would be, I don't know, maybe you could send something out so we could send out to all the industrial commercial people to say this is how it's going to work, so they don't come with the wrong configuration and things like that. So anyway, I'll leave it for that for now, but I'm pretty sure there's other things that can come back. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Director Zelznick. And I see Amy's taking notes here, so your comments were greatly appreciated, and hopefully will be acted on as we move forward with the closure of the landfill. And it's going to be a learning curve for everybody. Anyways, I've got Director Casely. Go ahead.
Yeah, the model doesn't take into account that you are dumping sideways into a bin. So you actually have 8 feet maximum width when you back up to that bin with a trailer. And the misconception that you're presenting about it's all commercial. If you spend any time at the transfer stations or dumps, which I have, is a lot of the general public now have dump trailers. And dumping into the side of a bin that is 8 feet wide and your trailer is anywhere from 14 to 16 feet long, I'll let you do the math on that. It's not going to work. It doesn't work because I've seen it. I've had people do that. I've cleaned up the mess from it. You end up with a big air pocket in the one side of the bin, all the way to the other, which then creates a hauling problem. So dump trailers is a huge problem. You can't take a dump trailer if it isn't all bagged garbage. You can't put a dump trailer into a compactor bin either, because it affects the compactor and its compacting ability, because there's too much resistance, which causes the compactor to think that it's full, and then you will have the lights come on. That is a common factor with those. I'm just saying this stuff because it doesn't matter to me. I mean, we're going to do what we're going to do and whatever, but I'm just, from somebody who's actually done it and been to these sites, the great thing I heard is that the asphalt shingles, because what you have to teach your attendants is that if you put a load of asphalt shingles, even a pickup load, at the end of when a compactor or when a bin is 3/4 full and those shingles go on the top, it is a very dangerous and scary ride to Odishenya, because the weight is at the top. If you've done any hauling whatsoever, you put your weight at the haul. Those bins are 8 feet tall, plus whatever the truck is off the ground. That would be I've done it. It's a scary haul, and I'm glad to see that we're actually looking at changing that part of it, because that creates a whole other issue going down when they're actually going through my community, and I'm going to have to respond to the problem. I really appreciate that. The other thing is Uli, I honestly disagree with you on where you keep repeating the fact that other communities haul their construction waste to Odishenya. Yes, they do, but nobody will be hauling the distances from Burton alone to Odishenya is 222 kilometers. So if you can prove to me that you have another site, and this is just Burton, never mind Edgewood, that has to haul theirs all the further yet, that distance one way, please show me, because when I did the math and looked them all up, it didn't show them out that way. So I think that's a bit of a misrepresentation to the public and to the people in the cusp, in the area in the cusp. The fact that, think about it for a second, you're dumping 5.1 cubic meters, and the other issue is that at 5.1 cubic meters, you're correct in the algorithm for weight versus actual volume, because the volume, you can have a volume. The trailer that was hauled when I was doing it from Burton and Edgewood was a 16-foot. He had a 4-foot sides plus 4-foot plywood or wood sides on top of that, and he would come over with the products over top of that when he come into the landfill, and he's still underweight. There's a bit of a misconception between weight and volume when you go through this. The algorithm can't figure that out. That's the thing with weight, is it's pure weight, but it doesn't measure volume. There will be some serious challenges over that aspect, and I think that you just have to be aware of that. That's all I'm doing, is making you aware of it. I don't really care one way or the other, personally.
Thank you, Director Casely. I will ask Manager Wolf to respond to it, and I'm not that familiar with the big trucks or whatever is happening there, but Manager Wolf, go ahead.
Sure. I fully agree that the distances from Edgewood Burton are higher than from Castle to Odishenya. Fully agreed. No dispute on that. If I'm a contractor in Edgewood, I likely would haul my load to Vernon instead of to Utashania, but that's beside the point. There is certainly challenges when you have a roll-off bin and empty a large vehicle into it. It's actually part of why we have the limitations to the 2,000 kilogram or 2 cubic meters. There is a learning process for the attendants there in regards to how, when, and what is directed to what bin. I take as an example, Roman, huge volumes coming through here. So we have probably 15,000 residents waste coming through that site. One of the things they had to learn was maximize the compacting trailer loads while not being overweight on specific axles, i.e. they were always having issues on the front axles and had room on the rear. So they started to learn that what the heavier loads are, to load them first in the compacting trailer so that you push the larger weight to the back axle so you could maximize what you were hauling in these trailers. And very similarly, on these sites, that is something that the site staff will learn over time to direct the loads into the right bins. What goes in a compacting bin, what goes in a roll-off bin, what do I load into an empty bin versus one that's 3/4 full, as you mentioned, as an example, that can be a problem. And I'm not denying that there will be some learnings to be had in the beginning, no doubt about it. But I have trust that our staff will learn these intricacies and over time that they figure out ways to manage these difficulties.
Thank you, Manager Wolf. So I see Amy has been taking some notes. And Director Casely, if you have any further suggestions how we can improve that, maybe send an email to Amy and Uli and copy me on that. So we're aware. I mean, I think all of us are looking forward or looking towards saving dollars and making a safe visit to the landfill and not having to clean up any mess. If there's something that can be done, we'll take a look at it. But cost is always the driver of a lot of improvements that we can do at a landfill. So any other speakers?
Chair, I have a comment to make after we finish this item, if that's okay.
Okay, the discussion is that there's no further discussion on this item that I can see, so we'll entertain your comment, Director Davidoff, and then we'll go to a public time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. So I want to thank the Chair and staff for holding this meeting. I view our meetings, even if they're held like quarterly or whatever, similar to the Rural Affairs Committee meetings, where sometimes we have a lot to discuss, sometimes we don't. But the key thing is that we have an opportunity to have discussion where it's not crammed in to a joint Resource Recovery Committee meeting where you have 3 resource committees worth of items to address. This was very relaxed. It allowed us an opportunity to flesh stuff out for people to speak. I think it's something that we need to look at and say, okay, maybe we don't have to meet as often as the budget time, definitely important to meet and stuff like that. But having at least a meeting quarterly, understanding, knowing our facilities, and when we're voting on something, it's $1 million or whatever, or we're going to be spending, a lot of money. At least we have some context to what it is that we are doing and where. And so I really appreciate you holding this meeting and calling this meeting. And to staff, thank you very much for all you do and your time at this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Davidoff. Before we had this meeting, I sent out 2 emails to all the West Resource Recovery directors asking for agenda items. And the only one that responded was Director Zelznick with an agenda item. And then we had a letter from Slocan with an agenda item. So having a meeting for the purpose of a meeting is defeating the purpose of meetings. Directors have other things to do and staff have other things to do. If we have enough agenda items, as chair, I would have no problem requesting that we have a meeting completely. So if any director has any agenda items that they'd like to discuss and feel that they'd be pressured in a joint resource recovery to have a good, wholesome discussion, send your agenda items to our staff and copy me on them. And then once we have enough agenda items on there, we can call a meeting and see there. Like right now, we're almost assured that we're going to have 2 meetings, one for the Oceania landfill and one for the Nakusp landfill. So when that's going to be happening, put your items that you want on the agenda for discussion, not only about the Oceania landfill or the Nakusp landfill or the other 2 transfer stations.
Okay.
So
Yeah, Chair, just have one more question. When will the org charts and the resource recovery communication protocols and charts be emailed to us?
I will get staff to respond to that.
The work charts can be sent out right away. I'm not sure what you are referring to when you are speaking, Director David, or through the chair, about communications protocols. So what are you looking for in that regard?
Well, I know they exist, and if I have to get one to show you, I'll do that, but it was very informative for me to see it. I've seen it. It exists.
Okay, Director David, if it does exist, send a copy of it to...
I don't think I'm going to... I think we're asking staff to send us to the West Resource Recovery representatives. And if we're not entitled to that, then I guess we're not entitled to it. But if we are able to see it, if it has to be in camera, let's see it in camera. But I don't understand what the concern is about sharing that with us. It exists.
Neither do I, Director Davis. So I'll ask staff to respond.
Here, right here. You want to see it? It's huge.
Cheapers. Do you know what that is?
I think so.
Give us a minute.
Can you talk about that? What?
I think it's through the chair. I think what that is that the staff want to call someone about a certain item. It's that it directs them to the particular staff.
Is part of that implementation of Connectee?
No, it helps to direct when they would, with particular...
specific concerns.
Yeah. Or the hotline or otherwise and that kind of thing.
Okay. And can I, through the chair, ask the director what specifically that interest in that document is?
Yeah, it's how do we address crossover issues between GFL and RD staff, because at the McKelvey Creek dump and trail, RDCK is totally in charge of the site. There's no question as to who's in charge of everything at the site. At the Oceania landfill and at other landfills, GFL is in charge of certain things, RDCK is in charge of certain things, and then there's crossover issues and things fall through the gaps. And I can show you all that stuff when we go for the visit. I can show you stuff that for 4 years has not been addressed. So, and I'm surprised that that's it. I'm going to stop there. I'm a little frustrated. I'm tired of going and seeing stuff and hearing about stuff that I shouldn't be involved in at all. I'm ready to go now to another landfill, for crying out loud. So, and I'm surprised that this doesn't come up to your level. That's what's frustrating me.
Thank you, Director Davis.
You're welcome. I'm sorry. You know me. I say it like it is.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate it. You have made your point, I believe, and staff has been listening. So the org chart will be sent out, according to manager.
And the protocol, as available, we will send out to.
And they will do the protocol as, you know, so consider it done. You have the word of staff that they're gonna do it and look after it. Okay, thank you. So it is 2:10, a little bit early. And I don't see any public on the line, and there is no public on the room. Oh, there's an observer on the line, so if you have any questions, now's the time to unmute and ask your question. We'll give them a little bit of time to unmute. Seeing no questions from the public, I'd like to call a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Director Weatherhead and Director Henning. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your contribution.